time, and it is through an election. I'm more of a practical person. I'm not an activist. I'm a politician. And I believe it is through the ballot that you can remove any legitimate government at the end of the day. I've always maintained that. And as a result, this by-election gives us that opportunity to be able to assess the situation, what NERA is doing, the demonstrations, the protests, and so forth. Do we have a case study that we can all use and say, truly speaking, the electoral reforms are not happening? Because you will need to have evidence before any court to say, yes, the electoral reforms are not in place because this election presented these irregularities and so forth. Basing our argument on the 2008 election and the 2013 election will not yield much results because there have been elections after that. And I think the courts are pretty clear in saying what new evidence do you have? And the new evidence can only come about this by-election. So that's why I feel it is important, because this is the real situation on the ground. And I think we've equally given you our Facebook account so that you follow what is happening from day to day. So my press statement of today begins with now 38 days to go until the Norton by-election. My campaign is growing in momentum and the response has been overwhelming. I've had successful rallies in wards 15 and 11, and each time the crowds have been phenomenal. Although I'm keenly aware that the larger rally crowds may not necessarily translate into votes, the sentiments on the ground of each occasion have been very positive. We're encouraging the electorate to go out and register. However, the following has been noted and a report made to ZEC, to which we await their response. Number one, ZEC has deployed teams of 4 people per ward, with Ward 15 receiving 2 sets of 4, making the 8. Because Ward 15 is the biggest ward for the voter education and registration exercise. However, we note with concern that due to the fact that the voting has now been changed to ward-based to polling station-based, the new time frame is too short to fully educate the majority on the new system. The electorate have thereby raised the complaint that the time frame designated to understand the new polling-based station method of voting is too short, and request an extension as provided in the Electoral Act, Chapter 26A, which provides for registration for a maximum of 12 days after the nomination court. Number 2, residents in Ward 15 from Glenmoose are forced to go and register at a far away Sherwood polling station when the nearest polling station is situated at Kent Primary. This is in direct contravention of Part 1A of the Electoral Act that provides that every polling station shall be located in a place that is readily accessible to public, including persons with disability. Critical points there. The new polling-based, we're aware of the system. If the system believes you're stronger in an area, they'll move the people further. So we then go with the law. We still use the law to say, but you cannot do this. This section provides that one must vote at the closest polling station. The evidence we have, because Ward 15 was dominantly ZANU-PF. That's the one that made the triangle win, where MDC had 200 votes and ZANU-PF had 1,300. And the difference in the election was 1,000. So because of the support, they are now trying to move these people further away. But because we are on the ground and because we're taking part in the election, we are able to bring that anomaly. And you don't at times need so many organizations to be set up to challenge the Electoral Act. As a candidate, I have the right to do that, and immediately I write. And if they don't, then deal with it. When I then go to court, I'm able to bring my evidence of having written to ZEC that they did not do anything about it. And to me, that's practical. That is practical. So ZEC must respond to that. Failure to respond to that, I said that we cannot have an election. But the evidence is that the court will ask you, what did you do about it? I wrote to ZEC and they did not do anything about it. So does that then give credibility to the election? Is it free, fair, and credible? No, it's not, because people need to be given time. This is a polling-based system, which has never happened before. It used to be word-based. So how much time have we spent educating our people? You know, this is why my heart bleeds inside to say these political parties are wasting time by not taking part in elections, because they will not be able to pick these things up come 2018. So a by-election gives you that opportunity to test the system, to also educate your people and so forth. There's been no radio broadcast advertising the upcoming Norton by-election and advising the electorate where to go and get further information and new processes and procedures. It is the right of the people. It is the duty of ZEC to inform the people. You cannot disenfranchise voters. You can't. They must have that information. The voter registration process requires an aspiring voter to register by appearing before a ZEC official in possession of his or her identification particulars, national ID or passport, proof of residence in form of a recent municipal bill. Where there are cases of residents that do not possess such proof of residence, they are then required to fill out and sign an official affidavit form. However, it has been established in witness that these forms are being indiscriminately filled out without any corresponding confirmation or additional evidence of proof of residence, as in the letter from the village head or government offer letter. The system is therefore prone to abuse and leaves a loophole for fictitious and fraudulent residents to be buzzed in and registered as voters in Norton. Yes, here's ZEC. It's pretty clear. They tell you what the requirements are: accepted the proof of residence, utility bill, credit statements in your name, a letter from the landlord, village head, chief, a letter from the parents confirming you reside with them, a copy of the notice permit or a copy of the title deed, a copy of the certificate of occupation, or a letter from the post office markings reflecting your address. A sworn in affidavit. Copies of the affidavit can be obtained from the voter registration centers where applicants can dispose of affidavit proving their residence. The issue is this: yes, that affidavit is available with ZEC, but who is the commissioner of oath at that point? We pick this up, we are able to pick it, but we will not for now, because there's been irregularities, because most of my team on the ground have said, but who is the commissioner of oath? It's a sworn in affidavit. Who is the commissioner of oath? We are able to pick that up. In picking that up, we then say, okay, let us wait for when the final voters roll is out. We have a situation where we have tested the system where people have got 3 slips. Okay. But we're now waiting for the final voters, because if we challenge ZEC on that, they'll then say to you, we still have not processed these names in the computer. So we're now waiting for the electronic voters roll. So we'll give them time, but already a red flag has been shown. So we're now waiting for that voters roll. We've also tested the system. We've also asked people to go and register with 3 slips. We now want to see that, is that person going to vote in those 3 polling stations? You've got to be in an election to understand that. So we can't, for now, attack ZEC because the electronic voters roll is not out. It's out on the 14th of October, where we'll scrutinize it and see where the loopholes are and so forth. If we have to challenge, we have the evidence to challenge them. But this person is on 3 polling stations. How is that? So that's waiting for that. Number 5, the Dispo Norton, unfortunately, has been instructed for reason unbeknown to myself not to accept any notification of intent to convene meetings from the Norton independent candidate or his campaign team. This effectively means that the rights is espoused in the Electoral Act to the freedom to campaign and hold rallies and meetings has been violated and prejudiced my ability to successfully conduct my campaign. I was there. Here's the letter. I wrote to the Commissioner General yesterday. He received the letter. I went to the Dispo to deliver the letter to complain that I am not allowed. So the police now can no longer accept my letter, even notifying them. I've got that on record. I've written. The Commissioner General must respond. So, we've got to be practical. It's a follow-up. So how then can it be viewed a free, fair, and credible election when ZANU-PF doesn't even write notification letters, it's campaigning, and in trying to comply with what the police want of notification, they're now refusing to accept the letter. How do I campaign? How do I campaign? So we now have that situation, and such barring of the convocation of meetings may be viewed as intimidation, as described in part of the Electoral Act, where this section 130 describes the meaning of intimidation, withholding or threatening to withhold from a person any assistance or benefit to which the person is legally entitled. 133C goes on further to illustrate that it is an offense to prevent or obstruct a political party or candidate from campaigning and the measures thereof. This is very disturbing, as ZANU-PF are mandated to ensure that the electoral reforms are aligned to the Constitution, and it seemed to be the very ones who are obstructing the electoral process in this regard. They seem to be taking instruction from the Home Affairs Minister Chombo in his capacity as Minister of Home Affairs, and one of the heads of Mashona and West. The war vets have clearly spelled out their mandate for the way as they are being treated, have apparently been replaced by the police. So the war veterans, having said that they are no longer part of the ZANU-PF campaigning machine, it is the police that will be used. So Chombo is the Minister of Home Affairs. He comes from Mash West. He's the most senior in Mash West. He's the Secretary of Administration for the party. Him losing that constituency is him losing his job. Because the president requested, you are the head of Mash West. How did we lose? So he has to do everything within his powers. Now the police are the campaigning team through that system. They are the ones who are going to intimidate. We then ask ourselves, are the police allowed to take part in elections? At what point? Or their role is to maintain law and order. So here is another phenomenon that is coming now to replace the war veterans. The military is not on the ground because the war veterans are an extension of the military. So they cannot go out there and then fight their own. It's now the police who are being used. So this is now a change that you must understand. So how far can the police go in terms of that? The state-controlled media houses are further not offering me the platform to campaign through their publications and to have reasonable access to the media. It is there. ZBC doesn't talk to me. It covers ZBC. Is it in line with the reforms, with what must happen? Not that they're really watched that much, but I think that must be provided for without any question at the end of the day. The sporadic cases of posters being torn and members of my campaign team being forced with violence have been reported, and we await the investigation by the police. What is interesting is, besides these matters being raised, I further written to the Commissioner General of Police, Augustine Jude, to query whether the recommendations made to him from the Zimbabwe Human Rights Commission have been adhered to. Specific instructions to the police were as follows. I'm now going back to the Urunga West by-election, where the Zimbabwe Human Rights Commission gave the police recommendations. Ladies and gentlemen, it's critical that recommendations are implemented, because this is the mandated body that looks into violation of human rights. It's not an NGO, it's constitutional. They think recommend certain things to the police. My question to the Commissioner General is, have those recommendations been done? If they've not been done, if people who were the perpetrators of violence in Urunga West have not been arrested, what stops them from coming to Norton to still beat people up? You see, I mean, let's follow this properly. So the recommendation was this by the Human Rights Commission in that report. It is recommended that the Commissioner General of Police should immediately investigate the human rights violations which occurred in the Urunga West constituency and ensure that all the perpetrators of violence face the full wrath of the law. This is in line with section 2431H of the Constitution, which empowers the ZHRC to direct, not to direct, the Commissioner General of Police to investigate cases suspected criminal violations of human rights or freedoms and to report to the Commission on any such investigation. He is directed. That is constitutional. So if he's directed, he must comply. Has he complied with that directive? ZHRC recommends that the Police Services Commission, PSC, improves the training of police officers in investigating and handling human rights and politically motivated cases. The PSC should ensure that in their functions, police officers act in a non-partisan manner, should not further the interests of any political party or cause, should not prejudice the lawful interests of any political party or cause, and should not violate the fundamental rights or freedoms of any persons enshrined in Section 208(2) of the Constitution. So we have a police force which was seen not to be well trained in dealing with aspects of elections. Has the Commissioner General, through the PSC, trained them? These are the reforms that we're talking about. A report is there, it's a public report. And then I then ask myself that all these meetings these political parties are having for reforms, why can't they base it on the Urunga West report, which was the latest, and challenge the courts? Listen, instead of demonstrating and marching, my question is that, have you gone to the courts? The evidence is there. The lawyers for human rights are there to offer free service. And I have not seen anybody challenging the Commissioner General in terms of the recommendations of this report. Do they read these reports? That's the other thing. Do they have a copy of this report? It was a public report. Do they have a copy of it? But because I have it, I'm able to then say, okay, I can challenge. First of all, I write to the commissioner, have you done it? He must respond. If he does not respond, then I go to court. And I'm sure the course, this is quite factual. It does not need any super person to look at the facts before it. We have an election there happening, and things are likely to happen, which happened in Lungo West, if this is not implemented. I have further requested him to advise all the details of the special liaison officer appointed to deal with the cases during election periods, as in Personal Electoral Act, Section 133, that provides. So every election which is held by election, it is the duty for the purposes of every general and by-election, the Commissioner General of Police shall, in consultation with the Zimbabwe Human Rights Commission, appoint a senior police officer for each provincial center, who shall be the special police liaison officer responsible for expeditious investigation of cases of politically motivated violence or intimidation within that province which come to the attention of the police, a multi-party liaison committee, the commission, or the Zimbabwe Human Rights during the election period. As we speak, I am going to court to say I cannot proceed, this election cannot proceed until the Commissioner General appoints this committee, which looks into violence. I have the right. So that when violence happens, there is this committee. In Urunga West, it was not there. I was still naive. I just come from a system, not knowing how the system behaves, but I'm wiser now after dealing with the system. So, hey, is this in place? Why should the election proceed when this is not in place? And we shall be approaching the course if he does not respond to the letter. I await his response. All the above are the reasons that I insist that the opposition and independent candidates must take part in the elections. At every stage, we are documenting and challenging the system constitutionally, and if we do not receive a positive response, we will not hesitate to approach the courts for relief. It is only by taking part in elections that you can see if electoral reforms are being implemented. We await the submission of the electoral voters' roll from ZEC. Is this way we will further be able to inspect any suspected anomalies. The mood of the people is excellent, and it is encouraging to see people wanting change. The fight will be in the ballot box, where putting an X against suffering and voting for Temba Mliswa will be the knockout punch. The knockout punch is in the ballot box. That's what we believe. Others are training towards the knockout punch. And I think I've never been in an election in this country, even in Rural West, where I was strong, where the mood and the morale of people is unbelievable. Is unbelievable. People are coming together. People want to vote. People want change. And this is election is not about Temba. It's about change. There's nothing more powerful than an idea whose time has come. And this is what it is. It's no longer Temba. It's about the Zimbabwe that people want. And it's going to start in Norton. There is unity. There is so much unity in Norton. Ward 11 is an MDC ward. Everybody attended. There were a lot of ZANU-PF people, to a point where people have even had to doubt that am I not being planted by ZANU-PF, because it's ZANU-PF which is at the forefront of even backing me up. When I went to the nomination court in Chinoi, it was ZANU-PF which was singing for me. It's amazing. Our Facebook can tell you what is happening every day. We have people who are cheerleaders, ZANU-PF, standing up and saying, enough is enough, we are done. We have that on our Facebook. You can follow it anytime. She gives her name, who she is. We have war veterans saying we've suffered and enough is enough. So the suffering is more on the ZANU-PF people than the opposition. The opposition has always suffered. But the ZANU-PF electorate has always benefited from the freebies. Such an economy affects them more than those who are already hardened. So ZANU-PF is now going to speak to its president and to its party that enough is enough. No amount of violence, no amount of intimidation will work. I printed a few t-shirts in fear that if you wear t-shirts, these t-shirts are being worn by people in the political parties. This is why I'm saying to the political parties, you don't control the people. When people are suffering, bring an answer. People want change. And when they say don't go and vote, don't go and register, people are not listening to that anymore. They want change. That's the mood which I've seen in Norton. And you are invited to come this week to Ward 40, where we are having a soccer tournament, the stronghold of ZANU-PF, where my mobilization, my campaign team is ZANU-PF. So it's just amazing. So the violence aspect, I'm trying to question it. These are the people who perpetrated violence, but now they are supporting. So who will perpetrate violence? The war veterans are equally very supportive. So are they going to bring in other youths to then perpetrate violence against these people? And will these people equally watch and be beaten, and their mothers beaten by people coming in from outside? That's very interesting. They have no idea. They don't know what to do. They had a meeting at the stadium, in Ngoni Stadium. They had 400 people. That very same Saturday, the meeting in a ward, my meetings are ward-based, they're averaging 1,000 people. They had 400, the entire Politburo. They sent trucks from Ward 15 to carry people. The only thing they got from Ward 15 was a tractor with 8 people. And Ward 15 is where the ZANU-PF candidate comes from, Ronald Janet. He's a phenomenal young man. He has a great future in politics. Like I said to him, Bachira wakapfeka this time, I don't know. Iwe uri right, but he bachi wakapfeka. The ZANU-PF jacket just reads Namu Chete. And people are not going to vote for suffering. I've equally told him that don't be violent, because you have a future in politics. If this election is violent, you want to stand as a candidate next time, people will not vote for you because they will think. So I've tried to also mentor him as a young person. They don't allow violence to happen. There are other elections coming up. And remember that you want to stand, you're still young. How will you present yourself before the people when there was violence before? So we've been told, according to the Electoral Act, to speak to the electorate, our supporters, that there must be no violence. And equally, there's no point for violence. I've said to my team, this is a winner, why do you want to spoil it? Go by the Bible. But on the 22nd of October is when the knockout punch will then be thrown. Are there any questions? Yes.
Just yesterday, the ZEC chairperson, Justice Rita Makarao, alluded to the fact that there's going to be a committee that is going to be formed that comprises of ZRP, ZEC, as well as Zimbabwe Human Rights Commission, to investigate cases of political violence, starting with Norton. The same issues that you are complaining about. Have you raised these issues with ZEC so that you are in the picture regarding what they are planning to do?
I'm happy with the chairman's response. This has been activated by us. We have written to her. For her to respond to that is because we wrote to her. We within brought it up on Saturday at a meeting. And we said that must be in place. And she must ensure that is in place. It has a lot to do with the credibility of ZEC. Right now, the police are not taking my letters to be able to campaign. How can it be free and fair election? Already, how can it be free and fair election? I cannot be approaching the courts every day to be given an order to go and campaign in something which is constitutional. I'm not the one who called for the election. It's the president who called for the election. Isn't it? So are they defying the thing president again? So it's clearly defining the president. So this is why I'm saying she has to respond to all that. But she equally must also respond to those who created violence in Murunga. Have they been arrested or not? Because this is the other issue. Let's not start with Norton. What about the Murunga violations, the recommendations? Because the people who perpetrate violence are the same. They're moved from one area to the other area. But if they'd been arrested at the time and the law is taken its course, I'm sure we will see an improvement. Let me also commend the chairman for the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission in that I wrote to her equally pertaining to my candidature in Norton, whether I needed to be registered as voter. True to the judgment of Justice Buni, which is a landmark, I did not have to be registered. I was testing the system again. So you can see what is coming out. So even those in the diaspora, as long as they're registered here, they can stand. All you need is your election agent to be there, to just stand in for you. That is a remarkable development, because we all believed you had to be registered in the constituency. It's only the councillor who must be registered in the constituency. She wrote to me, I wrote to her, she responded, she says, you don't need to, you're a registered voter in Murunga West. Why should you? And true to the fact, I sailed through, so it was excellent. So I must commend it for upholding that. It's very important. And when people uphold something from a constitutional point of view, we must equally say, well done. Because it's hard in Zimbabwe to uphold things from a constitutional point of view, especially in this system that is certainly on its way out. Yes.
You alluded to the point that you will be having a soccer tournament, a peace soccer tournament at 14. At
the date is 10 o'clock. It's on Saturday. It's along the Rimba Road, and it's at a place called Lydiat, just after the police station. That tournament is organized by the people in the area. I don't convene the meeting. As you know, that POSA goes for the convener, not the person who addresses. So this is a tournament that the boys are putting together, and the tournament mainly is peace. Boys and girls playing together, just like we did in 115. Everybody came through wearing different t-shirts, political parties, but playing football, playing netball, and of course playing our, my real song, Ja Fraser, Daracha or Shumba, Shumba. So can you Shumba? We are playing it big time. That is the song. It was very, very prophetic, I must say to you. And I've bought so many copies, and people are buying more. Yes.
Are you saying if that committee is not set in place, the one that is supposed to inquire into the violence, you're not taking part in the election? It has to, exactly. We need to be constitutional. We need to be constitutional. What is the role of the Human Rights Commission if they recommend things and they're not done? It renders them useless. This is taxpayers' money. They have a job to do. Whether the president castigates them or not, they must do their job
The judiciary must be castigated, they must do their job. And I want to really pay tribute to the Zimbabwe Human Rights Commission. It's the first that has stood up and has brought these issues up. And I think these people must be commended. They are Zimbabweans at heart. The judiciary too is playing its role. We must commend such citizens. We must commend them. I commend them highly. Yes, the president is entitled to say what he wants. He can attack the judiciary, but they must not stop from conducting their duties professionally. The Zimbabwe Human Rights Commission must not. In fact, by the president mentioning them, it shows that they are doing a good job. Whether negative or not, they are being recognized. The president hardly, even Maureen, it's the same thing. He hardly mentions people. So when he also talks about you in a public forum, then we say, kudos to you. You're doing a brilliant job. I mean, I'm still waiting for when publicly he's going to talk about the corruption of the land law and the corruption of chombos and them. He's very quiet on that. He's very quiet on that. And one thing I must add to you is that there's nothing magical about this election. It's to just stand in front of people and say, what has ZANU-PF done? There's nothing magical. There is nothing magical. And you equally challenge those in ZANU-PF to say, also come and tell us what you've done. No one comes. The economy is a third force. They spend so much time fighting and they're fighting, fail to address the economy. The economy is way ahead. The president, in terms of narrowing his statements to the state of the economy, he will quickly be advised to talk about how he's going to descend on the demonstrators, on the protesters and so forth, which is really irrelevant. But what is causing the demonstrations and the protests is the economy. A basic fundamental which no one needs to really run away from. And he has advisors. He is the Minister of Economic Planning. He is the Minister of Finance. What are they saying to him in terms of the economy? It is the economy, and I don't know why he cannot just meet people who are not part of him and listen to them. And they'll tell him the truth that, no, President, the economy is what is causing all these problems. And this economy is affecting everyone. We gave a blueprint, we had a manifesto before we were voted in to say this is what we're going to do. I jokingly said at the meeting on Saturday, said, when the president caps people, they all come, he says, well done, well done. So I then said, no. Now, when you see him doing that, he's basically saying, no job, no job, no job, no job. So from well done, it's no job. So the question is that how many no jobs has he kept? Because basically there's no jobs. So it's basically a sort of session to actually congratulate people for now going into the real world where there's no job. And that's what it is. The question is that, President, out of all those you care, how many have jobs? We talk about our education system being great. To the benefit of who when there are no jobs? There are resources to buy water canisters, tear gas, to just throw at people, which is very expensive. But, I've always said, I said it the last time, those water cannons must be directed to those ministers who are corrupt at their houses and that tear gas. And the billions that we're missing will actually pop out, out of those houses. So resources are being spent to fight your people. It's actually a war against yourself. That's what it is. It's a war against yourself. Any other questions? Yes.
Yes, maybe only different notes. I would like to comment one on the recent revelations by the president that Kasugwere is corrupt and that he's giving letters to Makai. Maybe a brief comment from you on that. Then second, I would like to know what is your position, what is your perspective on the decision by the government to say that when the Minister of Finance said there will be no bonuses, there is no money, they will cut jobs. And recently they've changed that, and they are changing goalposts to say that Minister Shinamasa's midterm policy review, the government is saying they've rejected the midterm policy review by Shinamasa. What is the comment on those?
First of all, on the corruption, the president in the opening parliament, when I was talked about zero tolerance and corruption, he's spoken about it, how we must not be corrupt, but he's never done anything about it. He knows those who are corrupt. He appointed the most corrupt minister to be the Minister of Home Affairs. That's how he really deals with corruption. The most corrupt person is the Minister of Home Affairs, who arrested. You're now using the most corrupt person to go and arrest others who are corrupt. Why then arrest him first? He has all such reports. Chombo is written on. And what I say to the president is that some of us are arrested because of allegations. And when I say it like now, it's an allegation. Why can't it be investigated? And then they, to show that the president is serious, he then says it's an investigation. And you investigate, is it truly corrupt? Is he not corrupt? Operating Prof is the same thing. When I was in Parliament, I said, Minister, I would like to know how you have managed to amass so much wealth, because I would also like to also amass such wealth. He could not respond. That's corruption. He has a bank. The president gives him the go-ahead as a minister to have a bank. He does not ask, how did you make the money? He talks about having a golden handshake, selling cattle. How many cattle would you have to have a bank which is about 10, 15 million? I mean, that is the entire national head. I mean, where did he put it? So, so how can the president, yes, honestly endorse that without him saying, okay, you want to have a bank or a minister, can I ask the security system to investigate how you got there and then approve of it? Yes, we are not saying that ministers cannot do business, but you declare your interest before. This is exactly what I will do in Norton. I will be meeting you to declare my interest, what I have as a member of parliament. I'll be the first person to meet with you and say, these are the properties I have, this is what I owe, this is what I'm owed, I'm now going. So that when you see me driving in the Mercedes-Benz, it's not from being a member of parliament. And it's going to start with me. I'm going to declare my assets. The number of children I have, their names, all that I will do. It must start with somebody, so that when you are moving on with what you're doing, people know who you are, how you stand. I cannot talk about others declaring assets when I'm not prepared to. It must start with me. These are the assets I have, and I'm going into this election with these assets. I owe this much, I'm owed this much, my value is this much. That's the modern politics that we want to encourage. So the Kasukwere issue, he is like the president's blue-eyed boy. And being the president's blue-eyed boy, he gets away with it. The Kasukwere has always been corrupt. He was moved from indigenization. The president, I don't know, at times, it really disappoints me, because he moved him from indigenization because of corruption. Did not investigate it. In indigenization, he equally gave his cronies money, who never paid back. He goes to local government, he's equally doing the same. And, but people have a tendency to want not to blame the president and blame the people around him. But who brings those people around him? Who appoints those people? The buck stops with the president. There is this thing in ZANU-PF that is taboo to say that the president is wrong. This is why I'm saying to the people in ZANU-PF, you cannot have a ZANU-PF candidate representing you, because he will not say anything. The moment he says anything, he's also expelled. So how many by-elections are you going to have? So Norton, it's about time you stop these by-elections by putting an independent candidate, because he's not expelled. I can question the president in parliament. ZANU-PF cannot. All they do is clap and keep quiet, clap and keep quiet. That's not the sort of leadership we want. We want the leadership that will stand up and question the president on the policies that he promised the people why they have not worked. That's not insulting to the president. So on the corruption, the president, whether you like it or not, he has to exonerate himself by allowing investigations to happen. This has been long overdue. This has been long overdue. And he can do that. We have a situation of the Minister of Finance. Can I be honest with you? If there's anybody who's being honest, is Minister Chinamasa. There's really nothing he can do. He has to say it as it is. There's no money. When he talks about him, you see, that first statement he made was a practical one. Then they sit down as politicians. The second one in the headline is a political statement. It's not a practical one. The real statement is what he said first. That we have to cut down salaries, bonuses, and so forth on civil servants. But the interesting one, which I constantly used to ask Mr. Samas, is that why can't you drive the 323? The cut must be in the executive. That's where all the money is. The ministers, all those cars they have, okay, luxury cars that they have, the phones that they have, the travel expenses that they go for to bring nothing. All those travels are to just go on holiday because no one wants to entertain Zimbabwe in terms of business. So why are they traveling? For what? If really they want to travel, the person who should be traveling the most is the Minister of Tourism or Tourism to try and sell the country. But he is equally not traveling because there's nothing he can sell. So, you know, the expenditure is in the executive. So let them walk the talk by first of all cutting, him driving a B50, not a Range Rover. Him driving a car from the motor industry. So it's once again, it's just an empty statement which affects the innocent, the poor, the majority. It does not affect them. They talk about sanctions, but they're still visiting America. They're still visiting Europe. So, you know, really, this is why, personally, I ask myself, are sanctions, have they really aided, helped the people's movement? No, they've aided more corruption, because the people who have made money are these senior guys. The ordinary person, so sanctions really have actually made ZANU-PF remain in power more. Come 2018, they're going to talk about sanctions again. Yet they've benefited more from that than the ordinary person. The ordinary person remains suffering. The top echelons of power keep making money. So, because there's no money in the country, every minister is just doing his own personal business, cutting deals. That's what they're doing. They're going to work to cut deals because if you have no budget, what are you doing? What then are you approving in the office? There's really nothing to approve. So, which means that they have no job. So the expenditure must be cut at that level. So that will be my response to Chichinamasa is being practical. Even the bond coins. It's basically telling you there's no money. We need to create some sort of currency. That will keep us moving. There's no money. We don't print US dollar. There is a shortfall. There is a deficit in the economy. How do we cover that? We cover it with bond coins. If you think about it, it's practical. Is it acceptable? That's another issue. But it turns away investors. People right now are buying property, doing a lot, taking money from their banks. You can't pay school fees for your daughter outside and so forth. But can you know what? These ministers, kids' school fees are being paid overseas. I would like to know, it's an investigation, would be interesting, that how many ministers' school fees are being paid overseas by these very same government, yet there are universities here. Any other questions? Yes.
Mr. Mliswa, you made reference to the police being part of the campaign machinery for ZANU-PF for the Norton by-election. Do you have tangible evidence that indeed the police are involved?
Yes, the court order, which gave me the right to the first meeting, they blocked it. We wrote to them for the Kingsdale rally. We notified them Friday, 4 o'clock, they told us we can't. Fortunately, I had a very effective lawyer. He made an application to the High Court. We met on Saturday. The event was supposed to start at 10 o'clock. We met in court at 11 o'clock. At 10 o'clock, the judgment was given that I must continue. So what was the point of you stopping me as a candidate? I've gone past the nomination court. So why would you stop me? That's the evidence. The court had to give me an order to the rally. Not only that, the court also ordered that I must be protected because I said I need protection. I must be protected by 25 police officers. So they had to come from Harare, which is another waste of resource. So I say to myself, I'm not going to get away. They're not going to get away with murder like they did when I went to Wingo West, tried to arrest me the first time. I'm wiser now. Marufuma, the excellent lawyer, sat down, he put in the papers at 10 o'clock. That's how efficient the judiciary system is. They were prepared to sit at 12 midnight. The thing lawyers for the police and the government were not there. The judge said we'll meet in the morning. If they're not there, I'm going ahead. He's a candidate, why are you stopping him? The president called for an election. And we had that. The turnout was excellent. After people had been blocked, it gave people confidence. So already, blocking meetings, why would you block meeting to a person who's contesting an election? It's their right, it's there. We notify you. If there's anything, more forces must be deployed in that area because of the election that is happening to ensure that there's law and order. Any other questions? Thank you very much. We'll keep updating each other. Thank you.